Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, of course, I would love to extend my sincere thanks to Mark and to the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy for inviting the Danish Permanent Mission and Consulate of Denmark to be part of this symposium. Very important and very timely, as Dr. Bubana has already pointed out. I'm very happy and very honored to represent the Danish government on this occasion, and I look very much forward to the dialogue with so many interesting speakers and participants. And whereas Mr. Bubuna has just given us a very strong argument about why to engage in cultural diplomacy, I will focus my presentation on some of the guiding principles of how we do it. And give you, or try to give you, an X-ray or a snapshot, so to speak, of how Denmark in 2014 is doing cultural diplomacy around the world. In order to do that, I'm going to begin my presentation by quoting Denmark's current Minister for Culture, Marianne Jelved, and this is the lady you see up here. She's a very experienced politician with a long-time key player of successive coalition governments in Denmark. And Jelved said, and I will quote, "International cultural exchange is important because we often learn about ourselves when we meet the world around us. Art and culture have the ability to spark dialogue between cultures." And of course, this is a very simple statement that most people can probably agree on, yet I think it contains a profoundly true observation. Namely, that traveling and interacting abroad reminds us of the ancient Greek saying, "Know thou thyself." It requires that we look quite deeply into ourselves and ask difficult questions about who we are as a nation and as a people, and what are our core values. It is only when we engage in intercultural dialogue with the world around us that we really get to know ourselves. And so the minister also proceeds to point out that, and I quote again, "Denmark's international cultural exchange activities cover all of the arts and the cultural heritage sector. Artistic quality, originality, and relevance are the main criteria for all projects and applications for funding which Denmark chooses to support, whether nationally or internationally." And so what, I would like to ask, happens when we take a closer look at ourselves? These are the Danes. As you may know, Denmark came in first place as the happiest country in the world in the 2013 UN Happiness Report. These happiness indexes and reports seems to multiply in recent years. Also in 2014, the international global affairs magazine, The Monocle, has once again named Copenhagen to be the most livable city in the world. And so what is behind all this? The happy people, the most livable city. What is the cause of this reputed happiness? And why does Denmark consistently score high in international surveys of livability? And I can assure all of you, I don't know how many of you have been to Copenhagen, but both of these top ratings may be very hard to believe in if you find yourself among grumpy early morning commuters on a public bus in Copenhagen on a very rainy and gray day. You're looking for these happy people, and maybe you don't see them quite just next to you. But by posing such basic yet difficult questions, this is still key to understanding our place in the world and our currency and leverage in the cultural diplomacy context. And I'll speak just a little bit further about some of these values that Danes venture to find when they look inward. In Denmark, the process of self-examination in the face of cultural exchange with the international community has led to the identification of the following core values and national trademarks in recent times. And I have, I believe, 6 of them up here. I will go over them very quickly. First of all, our welfare system. The basic principle of the Danish welfare system, often referred to as the Scandinavian welfare model, is that all citizens have equal rights to social security. Within the Danish welfare system, a number of services are available to citizens free of charge. This means that, for instance, the Danish health and educational systems are free to all. The Danish welfare model is subsidized by the state, and as a result, Denmark has one of the highest taxation levels in the world. Yet, the Danes are very proud of this system. We actually pay our taxes happily, which often comes to us, comes as a surprise to, specifically Americans, I would say, which seems to play a key role in these surveys on happiness, this sense of security. Secondly, we honor the core value of equality. Denmark is usually recognized by its social balance, equality and social mobility, low levels of corruption and transparency, high minimum wages and high levels of unemployment benefits that form the basis of our flexicurity system, where the workforce can move from sector to sector with relative ease. Thirdly, the creative component, or design, as we call it broadly. Modern design, as many of you will know, is part of Denmark's national identity and Danish, everyday life. It's in our DNA, so to speak. Many Danish products have become archetypes or icons of the 20th century design, and many of you will know some of our design greats. Some of them are in this building, such as Finn Juhl, who designed the Trusteeship Council ship chamber here at the UN, which has been recently renovated. I'll come back to that. But also present-day Denmark is home to a new and vibrant generation of young designers who are working in a much broader field, including digital design, design experience, and design thinking at large. The fourth core value is our happiness, which I've already mentioned, the happiness factor and possible reasons for this, such as our security and social security system. Happy people, we propose, live longer, they are more productive, they earn more, and they become better citizens. Well-being should be developed both for its own sake, but also for its social, economic, and political side effects. The fifth component here is the core value of sustainability. Our capital city of Copenhagen sports an ambitious plan to become carbon neutral by 2025. And Denmark as a whole has a government-mandated roadmap to become fossil fuel-free by 2050, two very ambitious plans that we are always happy to share. Copenhagen assumes its share of the responsibility for climate change with the Copenhagen 2025 climate plan. We want to show that it is possible to combine economic growth, development, and increased quality of life with the reduction of CO2 emissions. It is all about finding solutions that are smarter, greener, healthier, and more profitable. Six, the last core value is business and our labor force. I spoke a little bit about the flexicurity model, which is quite unique, even in European, in a European context. Denmark has the world's most flexible job market and one of the world's highest levels of education. Combined with virtually non-existent corruption, this provides the recipe for really good investment climate. And as a consequence, Denmark offers world-class expertise within a wide field of business areas, including life sciences, ICT, clean tech, and the maritime industry. So just to sum up briefly, these six core values, or national trademarks, so to speak, are what Danes are finding these days when looking inward, and what Denmark is very eager to communicate and share when looking out to engage in international and local communities around the world. So this is just a little bit to form the background to talk about how we do international cultural exchange. In Denmark in recent years, we have seen a very broad consensus around the goals and purposes of international cultural exchange. The overall aim of the government's strategic action plan, dated back to 2010, to increase Denmark's cultural exchange and with foreign countries and strengthen the internationalization of Danish cultural life as such in Denmark. This plan is a strategic plan which must practically contribute to the fulfillment of 4 purposes of international cultural exchange, and I've listed them behind me here. The first is development and renewal of Danish arts and culture, or art for art's sake, you could say. Art as an intrinsic value. The second is promotion of Denmark as a country, nation branding. The 3 is to further our cultural exports, the art scene also as a cultural and economic factor. And 4th, furthering intercultural dialogue, some of these topics that we heard about before in the previous talk. The purposes are defined as having equal value, and this is something quite new in a Danish and also European context, I think, to define these 4 goals as having equal value. And all of them originate, I will propose, within the intrinsic value of arts and culture itself. And so just to give you an idea of how this looks in terms of institutions, the implementation of these overall goals are ensured by what we call the International Cultural Panel, which was established first time in 2010. And here we have the structure. On top we have the Minister for Culture and the government. Then we have the panel and its steering committee. Below these, we have a number of working groups that work in specific cultural fields, and at the very bottom, we have all of the very wide sort of area of cultural institutions and individual artists that are out there that are working on specific projects to engage the world. The panel is part of a conscious effort to streamline Denmark's cultural diplomacy knowledge and resources, to increase accessibility, and to ensure a maximum of coordination within the different government bodies and institutions working in this field. It works both top-down, as you see here, with the strategy and the action plan and all the fundamental principle of collaborations to which I'll return in a minute, but it works most importantly bottom-up when individual institutions and artists propose projects and apply for funding. So the whole idea is to create this dynamics between the various factors within the field. The panel is supplemented by a website, danisharts.dk, and I encourage all of you to go visit it to learn more for yourself. This serves as a single point of entry for all public arts funding in Denmark. And even though we are only 5.6 million people, we have a multi-billion-dollar arts funding budget for culture, which is heavily funded by the government. And all the different art forms are represented by different centers and institutes, along with knowledge and research tools on this website. So really quite impressive, impressive that a very diverse field with so many actors have been kind of fused under this one portal. The current cultural panel, let me just see here. The International Cultural Panel is mostly meant to be a coordinating entity and a supplement to the Danish Arts Foundation with its 12 specific subcommittees, which is the main government body that distribute public arts funding in Denmark. And there exists, and this is very important for us, we're very proud of this, an arm's length principle between the panel, the people that devise strategies and action plans, and the people and the foundation that gives out the funding. So these are completely separated. When we look abroad, Denmark's international cultural exchange is represented by the following entities. We have the Danish Center for Culture and Development, which was founded in 1940. It's an independent institution with branches in 10 different countries. Benelux, Brazil, China, Estonia, Latvia, etc. You see them all lined up here. Sorry, that's the Danish Cultural Institute. The Institute both generates and supports cultural activities in Denmark and abroad. Most of the work is done abroad through the foreign branches. The Institute is founded on a broad conceptual platform that embraces art, culture, and society, areas that unite people across cultures and promote international understanding and facilitate communication. And the main focus for the current Institute is co-creation, meaning that we don't just send our Danish artists out to present abroad. Most of the projects that are are funded here are co-creations with local artists in different countries. This is very important. Always to have that local supply and demand structure. It focuses on innovation, on children, because children are the world's citizens of the future, and we find it very important to reach children through a variety of programs all over the world. So using culture as a common starting point, the Institute creates platforms for knowledge sharing, the exchange of ideas and experiences, and long-lasting cultural relations. These activities are diverse, from concerts to exhibitions, conferences, field trips, visiting programs, theater, film, dance, you name it. In this way, culture plays a very active role in the daily life of many peoples, providing personal experience for one and all. Apart from the Institute, and I'll come back to the fact that we don't have a cultural institute here in New York, that's a conscious choice, we have the CKU, the Danish Center for Culture and Development, which works both in Denmark, but specifically in the Middle East, in Africa, West Africa, East Africa. This is a center that does big festivals. Images of Africa have been a recurrent festival that we've done for more than 10 years now in Copenhagen every other year. But again, it focuses a lot on co-creation in these different regions of the world, in assisting artists from developing countries make their way into the art markets of the Western world also. Next, there is the Foreign Service with 105 embassies, consulates, and trade missions. I'm part of one of these myself here in New York, which is one of our main focal areas. And then we have a vast number of local networks. I'll just mention the local network that we have founded here in North America, which we call the Cultural Frontrunner Network, and which consists of more than 75 individuals and institutions across the country who volunteer in being ambassadors for Denmark and assisting us in furthering arts and culture in a lot of different local communities. And so with such a fine-tuned network, even a small country like Denmark can reach very far and potentially, I will argue, have a very great impact. And the current action plan for the International Cultural Planet panel focuses on the BRICS country and the Middle East. So we always have a geographical focus for every 3-year period. We also have a thematic focus for the panel, and of course this is in part determining which projects get funding. We focus on sustainability projects, on children and youth projects, and on dialogue, democracy, and participation, involvement of local people. So when we do, for instance, cultural projects in Egypt, we have worked a lot recently with art in public spaces, because we want to reach some of the people, some of the audiences that don't usually get into the public sphere so much, women and children again, and we've devised special strategies to reach those target groups and coax them into public space so that they can be part of some of these special initiatives. Now it's frozen. Oops. Yep. And now I'm coming, I think, to the most important slide here of my presentation, which talks about the actual guiding principles of how we do this. So for the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen a virtual revolution in ways in which Denmark does international cultural exchange and cultural diplomacy abroad. Previously, the main focus would have been on handpicking the best, or what government agencies in Denmark would think were the best artists and cultural projects, shipping them abroad and trying to make a big immediate impact or splash in terms of big festivals, presentations, high audience numbers, press coverage, etc. It was really mostly a top-down affair in which artists and local players had very little say. The last few projects in North America to employ this principle was Super Danish in Toronto in the mid-90s and Danish Wave here in New York in 1999. After these projects came a period of reflection and inward looking, resulting in thorough evaluation and tough choices, where artists and audiences were heard and where a series of entirely new principles were developed. And the principles, there are 5 of them, are up here behind me. And these are now the guiding principle of how Denmark act in terms of cultural diplomacy in the world. With the Strategic Action Plan of 2014 to 16, the Cultural Panel has agreed upon a set of 5 shared principles of cultural exchange. The first principle is the understanding that the implementation of any initiative or project first and foremost must be based on high cultural or artistic quality therein. So we never compromise on quality or professionalism, not even for political and strategic reasons. So quality is always first. The second principle is to ensure that cultural exchange projects are embraced by the audiences in the recipient countries. This is done by securing outside interest, reciprocity, and local anchorage as a part of every project. So we must listen and respond to an actual local demand. Otherwise, there's no meaning or no reason to go in and do something. The third principle is to make sure that the cultural exchange initiatives include a measure of longevity. This is done by including long-term perspectives, sharing of knowledge, and network organization in the planning and implementation of any exchange program. So we don't want to just come in, do a big festival, and then be out again and not follow up. Now it's all about building these local networks. The fourth principle is to base each project on the people involved, whenever possible, and when projects seek to strengthen cooperation between involved agents. This is done by promoting a bottom-up approach and facilitation of agent-to-agent cooperation. And finally, it is the fifth agreed upon principle to ensure high visibility and impact for any cultural exchange project. Because otherwise, if nobody knows about it, there's no point in doing it. And this is achieved by focusing on target groups and visibility in the communication of projects. And so what you can see here, if you kind of step back a little bit and take a broader perspective, is that you can say that the method of conducting cultural diplomacy in Denmark and in other Nordic countries especially has changed from an icon-based to a value-based form of storytelling. So all the old myths about Denmark as a fairy tale country populated by Vikings and queens and freedom fighters, they need to be supplemented, we think, by modern stories about Denmark as a resourceful country, which is a leader in the 6 areas previously presented, namely welfare, equality, happiness or livability, creativity, sustainability, and business. And these are the values, these are the platforms on which we want to share and engage in mutual understanding and network building anywhere in the world that we go out and engage. And so good hooks here in North America we have noticed because of course there are huge differences in doing cultural projects here in a very developed country or continent such as North America and in other places such as some of the emerging markets. Some of the good hooks that we found here has been new Nordic food. Food is really an amazing tool of cultural diplomacy. The ritual and the social context of the meal makes people talk and engage in conversation and in sharing on many different ways. So a lot of our arts projects have recently gotten a food component. Climate adaptation and sustainability, which basically undercuts or crosscuts most of what we do also. This holds true particularly of our arts and design and architecture, city planning. I was speaking a little earlier about Jan Gehl's bike lanes here in New York City. The whole green perspective is almost always present. And I can mention also here in Manhattan, I don't know if any of you have been following the Rebuild by Design competition post Superstorm Sandy. Some of the federal funds to rebuild and make New York more climate adaptable. We just had a Danish architectural firm, Bjarke Engels, win with a Big U project that's going to change the looks and the makeup of the whole of Lower Manhattan, and make it a lot more livable and interesting. So how do we work? Denmark does not, as I mentioned before, have a cultural institute in New York, such as the Germans have the Goethe Institute and many other European countries and countries from, throughout the world. And this is a very conscious decision because we'd much rather gang up with the locals. We don't want to isolate our arts in one of these tall, beautiful, cool buildings. We want to be out there in the local art scenes. We no longer, or very rarely, program our own big festivals and events. Instead, we offer counseling to Danish and US artists and cultural institutions. We do matchmaking, we engage in partnerships, we focus on strategic communication, both print and digital. We use social media very proactively. We assist with funding. That's usually a big deal. If you come with some money on the table, usually there are local funds too, and great things will happen. And of course, we still program official visits, royalty, ministers, etc. But we always try, we always try to refrain from building up a whole cluster or scaffolding of artificial events around them. Rather, we try to integrate whatever we do in the arts projects that are already happening out there. And so just here at the end, I'll speak for a few minutes before I open up to question about what we do in New York. Of course, New York is one of the leading cultural destinations in the world. It's a very exciting city to do cultural diplomacy in. The city has a great potential, more than 2,500 institutions of arts and culture, a lot of them leading in the world. There's a great concentration of world media here, which makes it a very good platform to engage in ongoing dialogue. And so the keywords for success here are to focus what we do. We can't compete on all fronts all over the city, so we choose our projects carefully. We always work very professionally with clear criteria and roots in the local communities. And I will end my presentation here by just briefly going through a few of these cases of what we've done here recently. Last year we had in Washington, D.C. The big Nordic festival at the Kennedy Center, Nordic Cool. It is a big festival, but it wasn't organized or planned by the Danes. It was entirely curated by the local curators at the Kennedy Center. So we were very hands-off in terms of what artists and what art projects were presented. And this is also a great example that Denmark is a very small country, but we have developed over the years a very strong brand with our Nordic neighbors, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland. And so we've begun doing more and more projects with them because we feel that we have a very hard-hitting brand and we share a lot of the values, those 6 core values, and a lot of history with these neighboring nations. So partnering up in cultural diplomacy on a regional level really makes a lot of sense also to gain more traction. A recent example here in New York was the Penn World Voices Literature Festival, which always works to further freedom of speech. And we organized, this is a great example of how we used food and the ritual of the meal. We invited a lot of Nordic authors. We partnered them or paired them up with American authors. So again, the focus was not on the presentation, but on the dialogue and the conversation which happened. And every feast happened around a meal where we served sustainable new Nordic food. Here at the UN, we have just completed a rather grand-scale design project here upstairs in the consulate, the conference building. In 2013, the UN building was renovated as part of the Capital Master Plan project. It is still ongoing. They're now working at the GA. And on this occasion, the Ministry of Culture and the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in Denmark joined forces to restore the Trusteeship Council chamber, which was designed by a very young, upcoming Nordic designer Finn Juhl in the early 50s. And we restored it to his original ideas and design principles. And today the UN Chamber is considered a masterpiece of Finn Juhl's career, and the chamber stands as a real treasure of Danish design and architecture abroad. And one of the main reasons for doing this was also that the UN, of course, since the 50s have grown. The number of member states have gone from about 50 to almost 200 today. And what we did was not just to bring this back to what it looked like in the 50s. We called a design competition to involve some of Denmark's young and upcoming emerging designers. And so what you'll see if you get a chance to go upstairs in the Trusteeship Council chamber, which is really rather stunningly beautiful, is a mix of the old and the new design. And it is all made in sustainable materials. It has a very organic outlook, representing some of these Nordic values, where we, Finn Juhl wanted everybody, all the nations, to sit in kind of a horseshoe shape. Nobody was at the end of the table. Everybody had to be able to have eye-level contact while discussing the very serious issues of decolonization, which was the main purpose of the Trusteeship Council Chamber. And so we did the grand opening here last year with our Crown Princess, with the Secretary General. We had the world press here. We got amazing coverage. And it was simply a joy working with the UN and the Capital Master Plan on this project. And so very last, another food project that we did in 2011. We did it here in New York in Union Square at New York's biggest green market. That has about 60,000 visitors on a busy Saturday in October. We invited 3 famous Danish chefs. René Redzepi of Noma was one of them. And we had them come over. They sourced all of their produce and vegetables and seafood from the local green market and the farms in Staten Island and Long Island and upstate New York. And we served free food samples, thousands of free food samples to New Yorkers that could come up and talk with these chefs and share a meal and have exciting conversations about the whole field to fork idea that is lying behind that. And so food is, I would just repeat, it really has proved a great public diplomacy tool for us. I can highly recommend it everywhere in the world. We've done dinners in the Middle East. We've done food projects in Africa, in Southeast Asia. We're doing a lot of food diplomacy. That's a new concept that maybe, Mark, you guys can take up, because it really brings people together across cultures. And so with these words, I would end my presentation, and I am very happy to take questions from you. Thank you.